Okay, let me say how I think it doesn't work or it won't work to save the world. I'm not saying it won't work if we keep doing it that way, but I am saying that it won't work because we are doing it that way. It might work even though. However, I think it's unlikely, and everything that makes the process over the course of the next years easier is something that might be of use for many of us. First of all, it won't work by us convincing the critical mass of people. It won't work by us being heard by enough people in order to make the shift. It won't work by the number of people who follow the right thing instead of keeping investing into the wrong things. It won't work in any kind of attachment to outer followership, followers, and people who agree with you or who are convinced. Quite the opposite. It will work in terms of moving the critical mass of energy instead of the critical mass of numbers of people. And that is a huge difference, because at the moment we try to be heard by others and we try to be taken serious. And again, what we call being serious is a trauma symptom of collapse. It's not possible to convince somebody rationally of something that would save his or her life if he or she is stuck in the opposite due to inner collapse. That's it's a trauma symptom. It's a thing that's happening in the reptilian brain of the human mammal. It doesn't happen in the neocortex. And the neocortex is way too unimportant in order to be asked in this moment, what do we do with this situation? So at the moment, we are running in terms of climate into a global collapse. And we are running in terms of, we are running into awareness for the amount of inner collapse in ourselves. So that is where we have to take action, and that is already present in this again, spiritual scene wisdom of everybody has to change himself and then the whole world will change. That's true. The problem is it doesn't lead to meaningful action. It leads to thousands and millions of people who run into their private life in order to fix their childhood and repair their character, and training nonviolent communication around small stuff. And all of that is gold, and all of that is the right thing. However, it leads to you or me being super focused on the private life instead of annihilating the difference between privacy and politics, between global and individual horizons. So it leads to more separation, it leads to more privilege, it leads to more work-life balance instead of saying this is about life 24/7. And that is what I come down to again and again and again. We are begging for suffering in terms of we are trying with all of our carbon dioxide, whatever emission stuff. We are begging for a bigger prison or for a prettier prison instead of for freedom. We are not asking for enough. This is not about getting along at least a little bit better. This is about cracking the code of suffering on the whole level. So when we talk about saving the world, what's very often in the background is, if we are not saving the world, we will be punished by our children, will suffer from a climate that is like not optimal for anybody, and species are extincted, and then we are extincted, etc. And that is a little bit like we are even running from this future, not because then we will be extincted, because that's too abstract and we are not really getting what we are saying there, because we are suppressing our own death. But we are running from being the guilty ones in the last moments of our lives. So at the moment we are like children or people in puberty feeling guilty, like, oh, I did something wrong, yes, and then we try to be our own parents at the same time and say, oh, you mustn't do that, otherwise you're guilty and wrong and bad. And we don't want to be guilty and wrong and bad, but that this is about our death, completely independently from us being guilty or not, from us being bad or not, that's something that we don't touch. So it's like even our motives for trying to push the critical mass of people into the right directions are so confused, and they are so caught up in the matrix of a prison. And we know about this famous sentence that I think comes from every famous man on earth at the same time. I heard it would be coming from Einstein, I don't know. Doesn't matter. The matrix of the solution won't come from the matrix that has created the problem in the very first place. Yes, and at the same time, we do not reflect deeply enough on how many layers of the matrix of the problem are still present and super alive and super awake and super powerful in our ideas and politics and laws around how we want to be part of the solution. So it won't come from us begging for a bigger prison, but from us getting an instinctive, embodied taste of freedom, making us so hungry for the freedom inside that we will stop repairing just ourselves, and from repairing myself in a microcosmic way, it will jump into the macrocosm at the same time, because I am taking action. And not taking action in terms of sacrificing my nights of sleep in order to help only others, but me living up to expressing being a powerful, living expression of love in action, which can't separate between self-love and being egoistic in the short term and being egoistic in the long vision, which is, this is about paradise for all of us. So it's not a current small or current big crisis around climate or whatever we talk about in terms of crisis. This is the big game of life and death. And it's always present. There is no superficial stuff. There is no modern stuff. It's always about the whole thing. It's always about the absolute being present and being visible and being sensible and tactile for our senses, for our instincts in every moment. There is no microcosm that is small. Every microcosm screams at you with the awareness around the universe. So, yeah, which comes down to our collapse and our confusion and our suffering is an illusion. However, I'm not busy with our suffering being an illusion, because it is an illusion. I'm being present with our suffering is suffering, if it exists or not. I don't want another collapsed spiritual guru in my life who says, oh, it's an illusion, if it doesn't lead to me suffer less from my illusion. And if my illusion keeps creating suffering for me or for anybody or anything around, it's my fucking duty to take it serious as if it would exist until it stopped existing. And that is where our spiritual scene will awaken to the power and the balls and the stamina and the rage, and just instead of just resting in cheap superficial wisdom. Yeah, in that way, our stupidity, choosing stupidity, may be way more intelligent instead of us choosing to say the right thing. Our truth is so much less true than our shadow and what we deny. So it won't work by us figuring out the truth and holding on to it. It won't work by us putting together the missing pieces of information. It's like at the moment, the narrative of people is always like, oh, and then this scandal comes up and then everybody awakens. Oh, then these, like, I don't know, sheets of paper or papers from I don't know, secret services are being put out into the internet by whistleblowers, and then everybody will change everything because then they know. And it's not about what people know, it's about what people can afford to move and to change in terms of containment in their nervous system, which comes down to the individual and even more to the global and collective layer of level of trauma, because trauma is the limiting factor in terms of what a nervous system can contain as intensity and as change in a short time. In other words, putting that into a radical term, change will not come from words and information. It will come from energy. And you might now say, no, Ilan, you are providing here information, and I'm not. I'm sitting here just for my own nervous system, moving and digesting layers of energy. Because what I'm talking about here is something that's present in me to some extent. It has been present in me for my whole life, and it has been becoming increasingly something like pressing me into expression as another layer of moving this energy inside. And the information in the video is a byproduct. And I'm not of service for anything. I try to not be of service for anything around at the moment more than for my own individual process of digestion and living up to more of who I am, because this energy of talking about saving the world wants to move in me as energy. So if a shift comes, it won't come from information, because we have enough information. We have seen enough scandals. We had enough bad news. We know enough about children who are beaten up in order to know everything, like just the first bad news on earth about the first dog being hit by somebody who owns this dog would have been enough for all of us if we wouldn't be stuck in numbness and collapse and being a coward and being resigned. It would have been enough in order to know something is going wrong. Something is deeply going wrong. A dog has been hit. Yes, last night. Did you hear that? Didn't you feel that? Then the more we will get to know, we will reveal around horrific things coming up and going on amongst humans and with other living beings, the more we will keep shutting down. The more we will know about the bad news, the more we will know about the scandals, the less we will be able to believe in our inner capacity to quote-unquote save the world. And the most tragic thing is, it's not us believing in our capacity for changing the world. It's us embodying the knowledge that we want to save the world. We want to be part of this global regulation because our own inner individual nervous system doesn't want anything else but regulate from trauma, if it comes from your individual life or the life of your parents or your species or whatever. So, and then there is this other narrative that's just so stupid around, if I step into trying to be a part of this global regulation or saving, like self-saving dynamics, and it doesn't work, then I sacrificed my whole life and it didn't work in the end. It wasn't enough. So there is no such thing like a future that proves to us that something that we took action about right now, today, with our embodied instincts, would have been not enough. Because We are not doing something out of our instincts for tomorrow. We do everything for the very present moment. If you live up to your full potential for the here and now, you do not forget about the future, and you do not focus on the future. You are just creating automatically the most blissful future for all of us and for yourself in the very first place. But that's not differentiable. That's not a difference from the best future that you create for me. And that is, again, like now our mind goes like blah, blah, but opinion, but egoism, but conflict, but whatever. That's the path of information. We have no idea about the path of energy, and it will come from the path of energy. The change that we need on the global level will come from the path of energy instead of the path of words. And whatever we do in terms of sharing words, may it move your energy. May it move energy in the space. May it move energy in your audience. If it doesn't shift energy, it was just another, maybe a little bit more pretty or educated way of wasting lifetime.